Welcome to the Bible Book Club. Now, some of you have asked if you can give to the podcast, and for the first time ever, the answer is yes. Bible Book Club is officially a nonprofit, and you can give to it. So, what are you giving to? Well, we're rather simple in our structure. Heather, Buck, Haley, and I do this in our free time. That means all of your gifts will be used to reach new listeners. Currently, the podcast has grown by word of mouth and just $1,000 a month of personal funds used to reach new listeners through digital ads. But think about how much we could grow the podcast in 2025 if you gave and we doubled or tripled that monthly spend. Ponder the math and consider giving today so that we can reach more listeners like you. We will put the link to donate in the show notes. Thank you for listening and giving. This is the Bible Book Club,
the book of 1 Chronicles.
Welcome to the club.
Last time in chapters 7 and 8, we discussed the genealogies of the last 12 tribes, including Issachar, Naphtali, the other half-tribe of Manasseh, Ephraim, Asher, and Benjamin. A good deal of special mention went to women and foreigners because this author wants every tribe and grafted in foreigner to feel included in the resettlement. The tribe of Benjamin was the most important tribe covered for two reasons. One, their close tie to Judah, loyalty to God and royalty. And two, the first king, King Saul, was a Benjamite.
Up until this point, you guys have been really good hanging with us as we powered through the history of Israel from the beginning of man until the exile and lots of genealogies. We ended the last episode discussing the first verse of chapter 9. I want Heather to read it again.
All Israel was listed in the genealogies recorded in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. They were taken captive to Babylon because of their unfaithfulness.
This is what became of all Israel, captivity. What will become of Israel now is the question that hangs over this verse. This is where the story transitions from Israel's unfaithful past before the exile to what our chronicler hopes will be Israel's faithful future after the exile. This remnant of returned Israelites holds the key to hope for the future. And our chronicler is urgent in his desire to reach them, engage them, and convert them to the faithful, covenant-keeping people that God will bless the world with. His task was monumental, but he is determined to teach them what they need to know to be different from their ancestors. The chronicler begins with a list of the remnant of Israel that returned and resettled. These are the people who link Israel's past to their future. For us, these post-exile Israelites are the link between Adam in the beginning to Christ and his return in the end. Had these people never returned, where would the record of the line of David be? Which means, where would the record of the line of Christ be? It would be lost. The record, the proof of fulfilled prophecies, would be blurred. That is the beauty of the Bible. God moved through men like this author and through those who returned to ensure this book of redemption was a complete record. This record, this book, the Bible, it's a miracle, really. So the chronicler begins with his miraculous report of the reoccupation of Jerusalem. These are the people from the tribes who returned and lived in Jerusalem.
Chapter 9, starting in verse 2. Now the first to resettle on their own property in their own towns were some Israelites, priests, Levites, and temple servants. Those from Judah, from Benjamin, and from Ephraim and Manasseh who lived in Jerusalem were...
The author is all-inclusive, listing 5 tribes, Levi, Judah, Benjamin, Ephraim, and Manasseh. However, he's only going to list names from 3 of the 5 tribes, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. Now, it may be that he didn't have access to those who returned from Ephraim and Manasseh, especially if they settled further outside of Jerusalem. It's thought that the statement that they settled first in their own towns and then lived in Jerusalem reflects the implementation of Nehemiah's policy in Nehemiah chapter 11, which states that 10% of the population should live in Jerusalem. So they went first to their towns and then a bunch had to go to Jerusalem is what they think happened. All right, here you go. Here's from the tribe of Judah, the people who resettled.
Verse 4. Uthai, son of Amihud, the son of Omri, the son of Imri, the son of Bani, the descendant of Perez, son of Judah. Of the Shilonites, Asaiah, the firstborn, and his sons. Of the Zerahites, Jeuel. The people from Judah numbered 690.
So remember, we were talking in the last episode of thousands of thousands before captivity, and now we're down to like hundreds. The people of Judah who returned are classified according to the three sons of Judah who had children, Perez, Shelah, and Zerah. Here you go from the tribe of Benjamin, returnees.
Verse 7. Of the Benjamites, Shelu, son of Meshullam, the son of Hodaviah, the son of Hasenuah, Ibneiah, son of Jeroham, Elah, son of Uzi, the son of Mikri, and Meshullam, son of Shephatiah, the son of Reuel, the son of Ibnijah. The people from Benjamin, as listed in their genealogy, numbered 956. All these men were heads of their families.
So from Benjamin, we get 4 family lines. Now here's from the tribe of Judah. The author breaks the Levites list of returned exiles into 3 categories: the priests, other Levites, and the gatekeepers. They get a little bit more print than Benjamin or Judah. Here first, we have the priests who returned from the tribe of Levi.
Verse 10. Of the priests, Jedaiah, Jeharib, Jakin, Azariah, son of Hilkiah, the son of Meshullam, the son of Zadok, the son of Marioth, the son of Ahitub, the official in charge of the house of God. Adiah, son of Jeroham, the son of Pashur, the son of Malchiah, and Maaseiah, son of Adiel, the son of Jezrah, the son of Meshullam, the son of Meshulameth, the son of Ishmer. The priests who were heads of families numbered 1,760. They were able men responsible for ministering in the house of God.
Well, as you'd expect, the priests were the most faithful, and the most of them come back. The author lists 6 heads of family, most important being Azariah, the high priest, whose line is described as the one in charge of the house of God. Next up were the other Levites who returned, not priests.
Verse 14, of the Levites, Shemaiah, son of Hashub, the son of Azrikam, the son of Hashabiah, the Merarite, Bakbakar, Hiresh, Galal, and Mattaniah, son of Micah, the son of Zikri, the son of Asaph, Obadiah, son of Shemaiah, the son of Galal, the son of Jeduthun, and Berechiah, son of Asa, the son of Elkanah, who lived in the villages of the Netophathites.
So 4 leaders are listed here. Shemaiah was from the Merarite clan, which remember we talked about those 3 clans. Mattaniah was a descendant of Asaph, who remember was a writer of the Psalms and the leader of a musical guild appointed by David. Obadiah was a descendant of Jeduthun, also the leader of a musical guild. And it is thought that Berechiah must have been from the all-important Kohathite clan. The Levites were given duties that included leading the singing and maintaining and guarding the sanctuary. The next up, and they get a lot of print, are the Levite gatekeepers who returned.
Verse 17, the gatekeepers, Shalom, Akub, Talmon, Ahiman, and their fellow Levites. Shalom, their chief, being stationed at the king's gate on the east up to the present time. These were the gatekeepers belonging to the camp of the Levites. Shalom, son of Kor, the son of Ebisaph, the son of Korah, and his fellow gatekeepers from his family, the Korahites, were responsible for guarding the thresholds of the tent, just as their ancestors had been responsible for guarding the entrance to the dwelling of the Lord. In earlier times, Phinehas, son of Eleazar, was the official in charge of the gatekeepers, and the Lord was with him. Zechariah, son of Meshelmiah, was the gatekeeper at the entrance of the tent of meeting.
So I think this has got to be the second or third time he's mentioned Phinehas. Our author loves Phinehas, the killer priest, the most zealous priest of all time. He points out that the Lord was with Phinehas because of his zeal. So he makes him an example. The author wants the same zeal for the current gatekeepers. And he wants that same promise from God that Phinehas was awarded. Because of Phinehas' zealous defense of the Lord, he was promised a future priestly line in Numbers 25. And the author wants a future priestly line for these gatekeepers too.
1 Chronicles 9, continuing in verse 22. Altogether, those chosen to be gatekeepers at the thresholds numbered 212. They were registered by genealogy in their villages. The gatekeepers had been assigned to their positions of trust by David and Samuel the seer. They and their descendants were in charge of guarding the gates of the house of the Lord, the house called the Tent of Meeting. The gatekeepers were on the four sides, east, west, north, and south. Their fellow Levites in their villages had to come from time to time and share their duties for 7-day periods. But the four principal gatekeepers, who were Levites, were entrusted with the responsibility for the rooms and treasuries in the house of God. They would spend the night stationed around the house of God because they had to guard it, and they had charge of the key for opening it each morning. Some of them were in charge of the articles used in the temple service. They counted them when they were brought in and when they were taken out. Others were assigned to take care of the furnishings and all the other articles of the sanctuary, as well as the special flour and wine, and the olive oil, incense, and spices. But some of the priests took care of mixing the spices. A Levite named Mattathiah, the firstborn son of Shallum the Korathite, was entrusted with the responsibility for baking the offering bread. Some of the Kohathites, their fellow Levites, were in charge of preparing for every Sabbath the bread set out on the table for every Sabbath.
So one day when we finish the whole book of the Bible, we're going to go back and study like key themes that run from Genesis or pretty much Exodus all the way through Revelation. And this is one of them, gatekeepers. There's a theme in gatekeepers in the Bible because they were important. They were selfless servants who kept long, late hours and had to live in Jerusalem. Now, 4 leaders are listed with Shallum being the leader. All were descendants of Korah, one of the 3 sons of Levi. Now, Korah was the forefather of the Kohathites, and the line from which came the priesthood. The other Kohath lines, not in the priesthood, were given the next highest responsibility, and that's the inner sanctuary. In this section, the author outlined the round-the-clock responsibility of guarding the gates to the sanctuary. All 4 principal gatekeepers were responsible for the temple's gates, rooms, and treasuries, which included everything from baking the offering bread to taking inventory of temple service articles to pulling an all-nighter on gate duty. Note for us, guarding the gate to the temple was symbolic of the cherubim that guarded the entrance to the garden after the fall. This is where this originated, this kind of gatekeeping thing. So listen to Genesis.
Genesis chapter 3, starting in verse 22. And the Lord God said, "The man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever." So the Lord God banished him from the Garden of Eden to work the ground from which he had been taken. After he drove the man out, he placed on the east side of the Garden of Eden cherubim and a flaming sword flashing back and forth to guard the way to the tree of life.
So man was no longer given access to God's garden, his temple, his presence. And the Levite gatekeepers guarded the gate to the inner sanctuary of the temple where God's presence was now manifested because man had lost direct access to God in the garden. Only the high priest could enter the inner sanctuary where the ark was, and he could only enter once a year on the Day of Atonement. Being so removed from access to God was a difficult way to live. That is why God provided a way for all to have access to God. Listen to John.
John 10, starting in verse 7. Therefore, Jesus said again, very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full.
Jesus became the gate through which we once again gained access to God. Remember, we had it in the fall. The cherubim blocked the way to the garden. We lost it. Then there was this only one man, the high priest, could gain access to the presence of God once a year. And now we have Jesus saying he's the gate through which we gain access to God. At his death, as a symbol of this, at Jesus' death, the curtain that separated people from the presence of God in the sanctuary was torn.
Matthew 27, verse 51. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook, the rocks split.
So this tearing represents the removal of barriers between God and humanity, allowing direct access to God through Christ, that gate. We have direct access today through faith in Christ, our gatekeeper. Now, in the future, we're kind of going to go back to a similar garden situation. There will be no need for guarding the gate. Listen to Revelation.
Revelation chapter 21, starting in verse 22. I did not see a temple in the city, because the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. The city does not need the sun or the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light, and the Lamb is its lamp. The nations will walk by its light, and the kings of the earth will bring their splendor into it. On no day will its gates ever be shut, for there will be no night there. The glory and honor of the nations will be brought into it. Nothing impure will ever enter it, nor will anyone who does what is shameful or deceitful, but only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life.
So one day there will be no need to guard the gate. The gate will always be open. Okay, back to our chronicler and his description of the other Levites who returned.
1 Chronicles chapter 9, starting in verse 33. Those who were musicians, heads of the Levite families, stayed in the rooms of the temple and were exempt from other duties because they were responsible for the work day and night. All these were the heads of Levite families, chiefs, as listed in their genealogy, and they lived in Jerusalem.
So if we look at it all together, those who returned and resettled, we've got Judah with 690, Benjamin with 956. Within the tribe of Levi, we have priests at 1760 and gatekeepers at 212. So a total of 3,618 men are listed. However, this was not a complete number as in Ezra 2 and Nehemiah 7. This number emphasizes those who settled in Jerusalem by male heads of family. Ezra 2 and Nehemiah 7 state the number of returned exiles was 42,330, which included women and a larger geographical area. But still, when you look back at the numbers of the 12 tribes, it's still a lot less.
I have a question. So this 42,000 that came back after the exile, there's still a lot more of them. They're just all scattered, right? Because when they were exiled, they're scattered everywhere.
Yeah, they were, because they were by two different cultures. First, it was the Assyrians, and then it was the Babylonians. So they were dispersed, grafted in, married in, lost. So these are the ones who returned. Does that make sense?
It does. But, I'm just thinking about God telling Israel that you will be the father of many nations. They're still out there, right?
Well, yeah, but they're mixed in just like we are.
They're mixed in like us. And then these ones that come back.
When he says you're going to be the father of many nations, it's because the Gentiles are going to be grafted in, all the nations. And you look at like even America, it's one nation, but really it's a lot of different people.
Yeah.
The fact that so many people returned was certainly an act of God. Think about it. Here's why. Life back in Judah, post-exile, was far from easy. The returning exiles faced a ton of challenges that made their resettlement a gritty, even dangerous task. First, think about the physical conditions. After years of neglect and destruction, the land was in ruins. Cities, homes, and agricultural systems had to be rebuilt from scratch. Just to get food out of the ground would have been physically demanding and urgent because They had to live. Then think about the political and social changes. The exiles returned to a land where neighboring peoples had settled during their absence. These groups were often hostile, creating tension and conflict as the Israelites sought to reclaim and reestablish their territory. We're going to read more about that in Nehemiah. On top of that, the protective walls that societies relied on for protection against attack were in ruins. And we're, again, more in Nehemiah. The returning exiles were in constant danger of attack. On top of that, there was economic hardship. Starting over economically was daunting. Most did not arrive with any wealth. They had been captives or slaves. They had to reestablish trade, farming, and basic livelihoods with little or no money. Lastly, they had to all get on the same page spiritually and culturally. After generations in Babylon, the exiles had to revive their religious practices and cultural norms in a land where the temple lay in ruins. Rebuilding the temple and restoring the faith was a monumental task that required teaching and covenantal commitment. This is where our chronicler comes in. He is giving them the spiritual education they missed in captivity. In summary, the life they returned to was a hard sell. I don't know why you'd go. Who would volunteer for a life in a ruined city with hostile neighbors, economic instability, and the challenge of hard physical labor to rebuild a community and faith from the ground up? The answer is people who are called by God. The same could be said for so many called missionaries today. God moves the hearts of people, and obedient people move. Note for us to think about. Not everyone is called to endure physical hardship, but everyone is called to glorify God in some way. Many times it is much less dramatic, like simply caring for a toddler or elderly neighbor. But being the hands and feet of God is important no matter how close or how far you have to travel. The important thing is this. If God is moving your heart, are you being obedient to move? And I don't mean physically. I mean, get in motion and serve. Okay, back to our story. And a story it's going to be because our author will use one more short genealogy repeat for the sole purpose of creating a bridge into the historical narrative of David's reign. The first story is short, almost dismissive. It's a short take on Saul, the king Israel wanted, who proved to be a contrast to the king Israel needed, David. This is the repeated genealogy of King Saul.
Verse 35. Jeiel, the father of Gibeon, lived in Gibeon. His wife's name was Maacah, and his firstborn son was Abdon, followed by Zur, Kish, Baal, Ner, Nadab, Gedor, Ahio, Zechariah, and Mikloth. Mikloth was the father of Shimeam. They too lived near their relatives in Jerusalem. Ner was the father of Kish, Kish the father of Saul, and Saul the father of Jonathan, Malchishua, Abinadab, and Eshbaal, the son of Jonathan, Mephibosheth, who was the father of Micah. The sons of Micah, Python, Melech, Tariah, and Ahaz. Ahaz was the father of Jadah. Jadah was the father of Alameth, Asmaveth, and Zimri. And Zimri was the father of Moza. Moza was the father of Biniah. Rephaiah was his son, Eliasa his son, and Azel his son. Azel had 6 sons, and these were their names: Azrikam, Bokeru, Ishmael, Sheariah, Obadiah, and Hanan. These were the sons of Azel.
Here we go. For the record, the Chronicle wants you to know Saul was a Benjamite, descendant of Jael, son of Kish, father of Jonathan, Malchishua, Abinadab, and Eshbaal, grandfather of Mephibosheth, great-grandfather of 4, and great-great-grandfather of many. What the author is going to leave out is the record of Saul's life. For that, you're going to have to listen to season 9, because our chronicler only wants to talk about the positive, and he wastes no time on Saul's disappointing reign. He only documents how Saul died.
Chapter 10. Now the Philistines fought against Israel. The Israelites fled before them, and many fell dead on Mount Gilboa. The Philistines were in hot pursuit of Saul and his sons, and they killed his sons Jonathan, Abinadab, and Malchishua. The fighting grew fierce around Saul, and when the archers overtook him, they wounded him. Saul said to his armor-bearer, "Draw your sword and run me through, or these uncircumcised fellows will come and abuse me." But his armor-bearer was terrified and would not do it. So Saul took his own sword and fell on it. When the armor-bearer saw that Saul was dead, he too fell on his sword and died. So Saul and his 3 sons died, and all his house died together. When all the Israelites in the valley saw that the army had fled and that Saul and his sons had died, they abandoned their towns and fled, and the Philistines came and occupied them. The next day, when the Philistines came to strip the dead, they found Saul and his sons fallen on Mount Gilboa. They stripped him and took his head and his armor and sent messengers throughout the land of the Philistines to proclaim the news among their idols and their people. They put his armor in the temple of their gods and hung up his head in the temple of Dagon. When all the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead heard what the Philistines had done to Saul, all their valiant men went and took the bodies of Saul and his sons and brought them to Jabesh. Then they buried their bones under the great tree in Jabesh, and they fasted 7 days. Saul died because he was unfaithful to the Lord. He did not keep the word of the Lord and even consulted a medium for guidance, and did not inquire of the Lord. So the Lord put him to death and turned the kingdom over to David, son of Jesse.
This story should sound super familiar because 1 Chronicles 10 is almost identical to the original record of Saul's death in 1 Samuel 31. This is a testament to the ancient scrolls of the Tanakh that the priests diligently hand-copied and saved somewhere during the captivity, I don't know where, because our author definitely had a copy from which to write his version. There are a few slight variations, like how they treated Saul's remains and how he was buried, but the only major pointed difference is that our chronicler adds in verse 13 that
Saul died because he was unfaithful to the Lord. He did not keep the word of the Lord, and even consulted a medium for guidance, and did not inquire of the Lord. So the Lord put him to death and turned the kingdom over to David, son of Jesse.
So we started this episode with chapter 9:1, which read,
All the Israelites were taken captive to Babylon because of their unfaithfulness.
And we're ending this episode with chapter 10:13, which says,
Saul died because he was unfaithful to the Lord.
Our author has made his point well. Unfaithfulness is not an option if you want a future. The Israelites ended up in captivity, and Saul ended up dead and the crown taken from his entire family. And the lead-in for our next episode, Heather read in verse 14.
So the Lord put Saul to death and turned the kingdom over to David, son of Jesse.
He goes back again to Benjamin, and then back again into Saul, because he's leading off to now, here's the history of what happened. We went from Saul's line of genealogy, bridge into Saul died, bridge into this is why you got David. And the rest of Chronicles is all about David.
Which is pre-exile.
It's going back. He's teaching the post-exile people all the positives. He's going to skip a lot of the negatives.
Got it.
He's teaching them all about this is who you are. This is where you came from. And this is why you need a covenant with God that you need to keep. And that's why he ends with this unfaithful challenge. You got to be faithful. But Chronicles is messy. Ezra was not the best writer. That's all I can say.
We've got merch. Great news. Bible Book Club sweatshirts are here, and they're only available while supplies last. So if you want to snag yours, go to BibleBookClubPodcast.com/store. They're only going to be available while supplies last. So hurry and get yours. And if you're enjoying the Bible Book Club, why don't you share it? And then you and all your friends can listen and discuss. New episodes drop every Monday.